Starlight Keep HFY presents Earth 101, How Not to Die on the Blue Marble. The lecture hall of the Eldritch Library buzzed with the low hum of 100 whispered conversations, punctuated by the occasional flicker of holographic displays malfunctioning under the strain of overzealous students. The vaulted ceilings, adorned with shifting constellations, cast a dim starlight over the assembled crowd, a motley assortment of feathers, scales, and bioluminescent tendrils, all vying for space and attention. At the front of the room, Seraphine Moonshadow tapped her slender fingers, each adorned with rings that shimmered like captured nebulas against the crystalline podium. The sound resonated like a soft chime, pleasant yet insistent, but it did little to quell the restless energy of her students. "Settle down, class," Seraphine intoned, her voice carrying the melodious authority that had brokered peace treaties and silenced war councils. She was stationed on Starlight Keep as an alien diplomat. Today, however, she was teaching a class to the younger inhabitants of the space station. She adjusted her flowing robes, which seemed to absorb and refract the ambient light, making her appear both ethereal and undeniably present. A particularly daring Corellian in the back continued to juggle miniaturized plasma orbs, his tentacles writhing in intricate patterns. Nearby, a group of avians exchanged hushed gossip, their feathered crests bobbing animatedly. Seraphine's eyes, silver pools that hinted at the depths of the cosmos, narrowed ever so slightly, a subtle cue of impending doom for those familiar with her. "I said, settle down," she repeated, her tone sharpening like a sudden drop in temperature. The plasma orbs fizzled out, landing with a soft hiss on the desk. Feathers were smoothed, tentacles tucked away, and a collective pretense of attentiveness settled over the room. "Thank you," she continued, a hint of wry amusement tugging at the corner of her mouth. "Today we embark on a journey to a world both fascinating and perilous, a planet known to its inhabitants as Earth." An audible groan echoed from the middle rows. Seraphine's gaze flicked to the source, a young Draven whose scales shimmered a sullen shade of indigo. He slouched lower in his seat, all forearms crossed in a display of maximal disdain. "Something to share with the class, Zarkon?" Seraphine inquired, one elegant eyebrow arching. "Just wondering why we have to study a backwater planet populated by primitives," he muttered. "Can't we focus on more advanced civilizations?" A few chuckles arose, but they were quickly silenced by Seraphine's cool stare. "Ah, yes, primitives," she echoed. "The species that discovered faster-than-light travel independently, without the aid of the Galactic Confederation." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Twice." Zarkon's scales flushed to a mottled violet, a Draven blush. "I wasn't aware." "Clearly," Seraphine replied dryly. "Perhaps you would prefer to lead the lecture?" He sank further into his seat. "No, Ambassador Moonshadow." "Excellent choice." She waved a hand and a holographic image of Earth materialized above the podium, a swirling orb of blues and greens, marred by the occasional swirl of storm systems. "Earth is classified as a Category 3 hazardous environment, colloquially known as a death world." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the hall. A timid Solthane raised one of her luminescent appendages. "Excuse me, but how did they survive long enough to develop space travel?" "A superb question, Lila," Seraphine acknowledged. "The short answer is sheer stubbornness and a perplexing disregard for their own mortality." She gestured, and images of Earth's most dangerous creatures flickered into view. Great white sharks, polar bears, hippos, which elicited a surprising amount of concern from the class. "Are those natural predators?" an Ayako student stammered, his normally translucent skin taking on an opaque hue of distress. "Indeed," Seraphine confirmed, "and humans not only coexist with them but sometimes actively seek them out for recreation." A collective shudder passed through the room. The Corellian from earlier piped up, his tentacles writhing in disbelief. "They hunt these beasts?" "Sometimes," Seraphine said, but they also conserve them, study them, and, in some cases, attempt to tame them. Why? The entire front row blurted in unison. Seraphine allowed herself a small smile. Ah, the eternal question. Humanity has a saying, because it's there, which, as explanations go, is both entirely insufficient and yet profoundly telling. A chime sounded from the corner of the room as a holographic display malfunctioned, projecting a confused jumble of text and images onto the ceiling. Seraphine sighed inwardly. It seemed the library's ancient systems were struggling to keep up with the day's lesson, or perhaps protesting the subject matter. Moving on, she continued, we'll delve into the environmental hazards unique to Earth. For instance, their weather patterns include phenomena such as hurricanes, tornadoes, and something charmingly known as fire tornadoes. You're making that up, Zarkon blurted before he could stop himself. Seraphine fixed him with a level stare. By all means, feel free to verify it during your next extracurricular research session. She tapped the podium, and a swirling vortex of flames filled the air. But do be cautious with your search terms. Human databases can be unpredictable. A few stifled laughs echoed, and even Zarkon managed a sheepish grin. Now, Seraphine said, clasping her hands serenely, let's discuss the concept of extreme sports, activities in which humans voluntarily engage for entertainment, often involving significant risk of injury or death. The avians rustled uneasily. They endanger themselves for fun, one squawked, her feathers puffing out in alarm. Precisely, Seraphine affirmed. Skydiving, mountain climbing, something called base jumping, which, as far as I can tell, involves leaping off structures with only a thin piece of fabric to prevent a fatal collision with the ground. Madness, the Ayako whispered, his eyes wide. Or perhaps, Seraphine suggested, a testament to their relentless pursuit of experience and challenge. A tentacle shot up from the back. Is it true they have a sport where they run toward each other and collide on purpose? Seraphine nodded. Several, in fact, though I believe you're referring to rugby or possibly American football. The class erupted into a cacophony of disbelief and fascination. Order, please, Seraphine called out, though a hint of amusement colored her tone. I assure you, we have much to cover, including their complex social structures, technological innovations, and their unique approach to diplomacy. Can't wait to hear about that, the Corellian muttered, earning a few chuckles. Oh, you might be surprised, Seraphine said enigmatically. For all their quirks, humans have an uncanny ability to adapt and survive, qualities that have allowed them not only to endure their own planet, but to reach out into the stars. She glanced around the room, satisfied to see a mixture of curiosity and respect replacing the earlier skepticism. By the end of this course, she concluded, I hope you'll not only understand how to navigate the challenges of Earth, but also appreciate the remarkable species that calls it home. A soft chime signaled the end of the session. For next time, Seraphine added as the students began to gather their things, please read the first 3 chapters of Human Cultural Practices, a comprehensive guide. And do try not to engage in any extreme sports before we've covered safety protocols. The class dispersed amidst a flurry of whispers and animated gestures. As Seraphine organized her notes, she couldn't help but overhear snippets of conversation. Did you see those creatures? Teeth like plasma saws. I heard humans can survive falls from great heights if they land in water. What's bungee jumping? She smiled softly to herself. Perhaps, just perhaps, they'd begin to see the value in understanding Earth's enigmatic inhabitants.